Good day to everyone. So in the last video, we have seen the different types of control constructs, especially the blocked if control construct, logical if, and if then else control constructs, and its corresponding example programming and how to use these constructs in your corresponding FORTRAN programming. Suppose if you have a if statement, it is possible to assign a name to a if construct. So this is the if construct, if then else construct, where I have added the corresponding name to the if construct. So the if statement will start with the name, and if this is true, then the statement will be executed, or if this is logical expression 1 is false, then the else if statement will be executed, which we already seen in the last class itself. So suppose if you have any if then else statement, you can start the construct with the name, where the name may be the name may be up to 21 alphanumeric characters long, which is beginning with the letter. The name given to the if construct must be unique. Within each program unit, and must not be the same as any constant or variable name within the program unit itself. If a name is assigned to an if, then the same name must appear on the associated end if statement also. Suppose if you can see here, so this expression if statement is actually started with the name, which should be ended with the same name also. Suppose if you have more than one if statements, only the if statements, then you have to each if statement should start with the different names. For example, if you take a next if statement, suppose the nested if statement, suppose the if logical expression is this logical expression then is true, then the statements will be executed. So the first if statement having its own name n1, name 1, and you have once if the logical statement in the expression is executed, and you go for the next if statement, this next if statement having the another name which is called name 2. So if this logical expression is executed, then if logical expression is true, then the corresponding expression or blocked codes will be executed. So once if it is done, you have to complete, means end the if statement with the end if command. So the first, always the inner loops should be closed first. That means either this statement here, if logical expression is true, is actually first closed with the name n2. So after that, the outer if statement should be closed. So that is how this the if construct should be used in your FORTRAN programming. Okay, so the names are optional in else and else if construct, but if you are used, you must be, they must be the same name as on the if statement itself, which I already told you. So why would we want to name a if construct? So that is a question. So for example, if the simple examples like what we have seen in the earlier classes, it doesn't have much lines. It's having hardly 10 to 15 lines, but there are some other programs which is having more than 1000 lines or something. So the principal reason for using names is to help the programmer as well as the compiler to keep if construct straight to our own, straight to our for the user purpose. For example, suppose if we have a complex if construct that is hundreds of lines long, it's spanning to the many pages of listing. Suppose if we name all the parts of all the constructs with different unique names, then we can tell at a glance which construct is particular else or else if statement belongs to. Okay, so this name the naming the if construct is not having a particular reason, but if you want to have a if you want to debugging the program, suppose if there any error in your program in any control constructs, then if you are naming the control construct with the corresponding name, then the compiler will tell you that at you can easily find out which if statement is actually having an error, which can be identified by the compiler itself using the name. So I'm going to give you the example for the control command, the example program, the same example program with different point of views. One is the nested if statement with name and without name. This is a program with name, and this is without name. So the programs are everything is similar, but you have a nested if statement with 3 different if statements. Suppose this if the test 1 is actually true, then the block 1 will be executed. Otherwise, test 2 is true, then the block 2 is executed, or the test 3 the test 3 is a valid one, then the block 3 will be executed, and simultaneously you have to close all the loops. This inner loop actually is closed first, and then the second loop and the outermost loop will be closed. The last preference given to the outermost loop. Suppose if you editing the program is somewhat without knowingly just deleted the one in if statement, and if you are in compiling the program, you have actually entered with the entered the if statement with the 3 end ifs, but unknowingly you deleted one if statement, then the compiler will show you that there is a error in the error in the closing of the if loop, because you have only 2 if statements, but you have used 3 end if statements, so it shows you the error in the mismatch between the if and end if statements, but it will not show you the which if statement is actually error. So suppose if you are having another situation where you name each and every statement with the different names. For example, the first statement having the name outer, and the middle name, the middle one having the name middle, and the innermost if statement having the name inner. And then if you are doing the execution of the programming, and if you are properly ending the loop with the end if with the corresponding names of the if loops. For example, the inner loops closed first, the middle one second, and the outermost loop is closed lastly. Then suppose if this line is missing, suppose this line is missing, then it will show you that this end if, the corresponding end if, is actually not closed properly. So this is actually giving you the corresponding line number or a name, so that you can easily find out where the error is. So the block if construct is very flexible. That means it must have a it must have a one if statement and then statement, and every statement will be with all the statements having only one end if statement. But if you take a if then construct, the nested construct, then you have a every if statement should be closed with the end if statement. But if you are using the else if, it means if then else statement, only the if statement if and then having only one end if statement is needed, but all the else if and the else statements does not require the end if statement. So this is, please keep it in mind. So it is somewhat simpler to write a program with a if then else if statement than the nested if statement. Okay, so I will show you the example for this. We are taking the same program, but I am going to write the program with the 2 different if loops. But one is the if then else, another one is the nested if, and you can see we can decide that which is the simpler one. For example, so this is the example I have taken. So where I have using the both else if as well as the nested if statement. I write the 2 programs using the else if and the nested if statement. Suppose if you want to write the program that reads the marks in numerical grade and assign a corresponding letter to the each and every grade according to the following table. Suppose if the student is secured grade which is more than 95 marks, then the corresponding grade is actually A. If the grade is actually 80 to 95, then the grade is B. And if the student has secured a mark between the 65 to 80, then the mark is the corresponding grade is 3, C. Or if the mark is actually between the 15 to 65, then T is the corresponding grade, and if the student is secured more less than 55, 0 to 50, sorry, 0 less than 0 to 50, then the grade will be fail. So you have to construct write a program. Suppose if the user is included the means entered the value, entered the mark, then we have to, based on the mark, you have to given the grade from A to F. Okay, so I have to write the program using the multiple else if statement as well as the nested if statement. First, I start with the else if statement. So I have written the program for the corresponding just giving the conditions, and I have written the program. So as usual, I started with the implementation none and the real. I have declared the grade A, B, C, D, and F as the real variables, and I am asking the user to enter the mark in numbers. This number will be stored in a variable grade. So I am going to check whether the grade is greater than 100. Suppose if unknowingly or mistakenly the user entered the mark more than a mark as a more than 100, then you have to tell the user that this is an invalid mark. And then the usual conditions, it means the grade is greater than 95, then the grade is A. And similarly, you can just write the else if statements, and you can the last statement can be written as else the grade is F. Suppose if the mark is actually below 90, below 50, the below 50 will 0, the grade can be taken as a F. That means fail. Okay. So the corresponding output of the program is given here. Suppose if I given the mark, suppose I enter the marks as 243, then the first statement, the invalid mark will be the first right statement will be executed. Then it come out of the loop. Then end the program. So the based on the marks 54, 76, 12, and 93, it actually given the corresponding grades to the equivalent marks, equivalent numerical marks. So this is the program where I have used the else if statement to write the program. So the same program I am going to write it using the nested if statement, which is given here. You can see that the number of lines is also very increased, and also you have used more than one end if statement here. Whereas here you have used only one if statement and entered the loop with a single end if. So this is actually this kind of statements will have a less errors. Suppose if you are editing the program, it having a very less chance of the error. Suppose if I use the nested if, so each and every if statement is actually started with the name colon. Suppose if you are not giving the colon, then it will show you the syntax error. Okay, so each and every if statement having its own unique names, and each and every loop means loops for the first innermost loop is actually closed first, and the outermost loop is actually closed in the final loop. So this is actually giving the same result whatever we have seen in the last last example. Using the else if, you have getting the same output but with a less number of lines as well as the complexity. So it's better always use the else if statement whenever it is necessary instead of the nested if loops. But you can also use the if loops where if you are specifically asked to use the nested if statement. Suppose if you have any problems which is required to use the nested if statement, then you can use the nested if statement. But you have to be careful about closing all the loops with the names. Okay. So the final control construct which we are going to use is the case construct. So the case construct is another form of branching construct. It permits a programmer to select a particular code block to execute based on the value of the single integer or a character or a logical expression. So this is the general form of the case statement. Suppose in if statement or other statement, you are going to check whether the given number is greater than or equal to 0, or if you are giving some logical expression. Based on the logical expression, you can specify the which statement or a block code block will be executed based on the logical expression. Suppose if you give a particular integer value to the program, based on the value you have to select the different options. Then if this is the case, then you have to use the case control construct for in your program. So if the value of the case expression, that means this is the syntax with the each you can, this name is optional again, but it is always recommended to use the name in your each and every case. So select case is the corresponding case, and you have to give the corresponding integer value to this case expression. So if the value of the case expression is in the range of values included in the case selector, then that means then the first code block will be executed. Suppose this case 1 is the given case expression is in the range of case 1, then the first block will be executed. Similarly, if the value of the case expression is in the range of the values included in the case section 2, then the second block will be executed. This block will be executed, or if there is no, if these two blocks or case expressions are not included in these two statements, the two case statements, then the default case statement will be executed, and the corresponding block, the code block, will be executed. Suppose if this is not true, both the cases are not true, then the default case will be executed, which is the same idea. This same idea is applied for any other cases in the construct. The default code block is optional again. Suppose if you are giving all the valid options, then the default code is not necessary. But if it is present, the default code block will be executed whenever the value of the case expression is outside the range of all the cases or the case selectors. So if it is not present and the value of case expression, the case expression is outside the range of all the case sections, then none of the code blocks will be executed. Suppose if the default case is not given. Again, as I told you that the name may be assigned to the case construct if desired. The name must be again a unique within each program unit, and if the name is assigned to the select case, then the same name should be given to all the cases, and end up with the end selector should also having a same name. Otherwise, it will show you the error. So this case expression is maybe a the case expression may be a integer or a character or a logical expression, but it is not a it should not have a real value. So each case selector must be the integer, logical, as well as the character, maybe a character. All case selector must be manually executed. So each case expression is having its unique value, and each and every single value that can appear in more than one case selector. That means all the case names, case expressions should be unique for each case. So this case 1 should not be equal to the case 2. So that is what. So the block diagram of the case construct is the flowchart of the case control construct is given here. Suppose if you are entering into the case expression case selector 1, case selector, and if the case selector is in the range, within the range, then the block 1 will be executed, or if it is not in the range, then the case 2, so case selector 2 will be selected, and if this case selector is 2 is in the range, then the block 2 will be executed. Otherwise, if it is goes to the next case. So once if the corresponding block is executed, then the program will goes to the next section. So if the case 1 is true, then it will not go to the next cases. It will end goes to the corresponding the next expressions will be executed without executing the case 2 or case 3. Suppose if the case 1 is failed, or case 1 is in the range, case 1 is not in the range, and case 2 is in the corresponding range, then the block 2 will be executed without executing the other blocks. So that is the corresponding flowchart of the case construct. So the case construct is having its own merits and demerits, and it having its own laws. The cases should not overlap. That means if your case expression for the first case and second case should not be the range. Suppose if you are giving the particular range, this range will not be overlapped between the two cases, so that the given value can appear only in the one case. Similarly, the case selector can take one of the four forms. That means, suppose if you are the case value, suppose you are giving the case value, this case value should be equal to the corresponding case expression. Or suppose if you are giving the lower value, then the case expression, the lower value should be lesser than or equal to the corresponding case expression. Or you can give the higher value. That means the higher value is actually greater than the case expression. Or you can give the two values, that means the range between the lower value as well as the higher value. So the case expression should be in the range of lower value, from the lower value to the upper value. Or it can be a combination of any form, any of these forms with which is separated by a comma. Okay, so I will give you the corresponding example for the case construct. This is the example program for the case construct, where I am actually reading the temperature, or you can just the user entering the temperature. So based on the entered value, you have to take the different decisions. So here the temp C is the corresponding integer, that means the case expression, which is given by the user, which is nothing but the integer. It is not a real value or any other value. So I take it as an integer. So this integer is actually the case expression here. So the select case is actually having some expression. So if this expression is coming under this case, suppose the case of the lower value is not mentioned here, but colon the higher value, means -1 to less than, whatever the value which is greater than the lesser than the -1 will be taken as this coming under the case 1. So if the entered value is coming in this range, or in the entered temperature is coming in this range, then it's the below freezing temperature. Just you have to write whatever the statement according to the corresponding cell in this temperature. Suppose if the temperature is 0, then you have to print this statement. Or if the statement is actually, if the temperature is between the range of 1 to 20, then you have to give the corresponding output. Similarly, the next case is having a range of 21 to 33, then you have another expression or another work to do. Similarly, if the higher value, the lower value is given and higher value is not mentioned, that means whatever the values which is greater than 34 or equal to 34 or greater than 34, then this expression, this case will be executed. So you can see that. So every case expression here, you can see that the lower value is actually, the lower value is not given, but the higher value is upper bound is given. Here we have given only only a single integer, or you can give the range between the numbers 1 to 20 or whatever you require. You can see that in each case the number will be entered only once. For example, if it is the lower value is 1 and the greater value is 20, you cannot able to use the 20 here, because I told you that the case will not be overlapped. So you started with the 21 and between the 33. Then similarly you can do the other, you can use the other numbers. So the output is given here. Suppose the user is entered the number 34, then it actually coming to this last case. It is omitting all the other cases and directly coming to the case 4, and it is writing the expression, it's hot today. Suppose if the entered value is -4, then the first case, that means if the first case will be executed, that means the first statement, whatever the associated case 1 statement will be executed. Similarly, the other value, suppose 23 means this one will come, the case 4 will be executed, and the corresponding return statement, corresponding statement will be printed in the output. So these are the different possible outputs. One can see that, suppose if I enter the real number, suppose I already told that it should be an integer, whatever the value should be given as the integer, but this is also given as an integer, the type is integer. Suppose if you are entering the real value 23.1, then the Fortran compiler itself showing that the bad integer from the item 1, that means it show you the error. Okay, so this is one of the example where you can use the case expression in between the two ranges, or you can give the different combination or a given values. So you can also give the values, that means different values by separating the commas, which I have given here. Suppose this program is actually finding the input, the given number is a odd valued or a even valued. So you can use this, the n value is the case selector here. So whatever the value given to the n value will be executed in the case statements, and where it is the n values in the values fixed in the fixing in the case. Suppose if the case is the first case is having the values of 1, 3, 5, 7 and 9, that means the value of n value, the value of the variable n value is having this values 1, 3, 5, 7 and 9, then this case will be executed. Otherwise it goes to the next statement. So for example, if the n value is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, in any one of the values between the 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, then this statement, the right statement, that is the entered number is a even valued, will be printed in the output statement. Or if the value is more than 11 or more than 11, then the case 3 will be executed. And we also have another case statement, another case which is called default, but this is not mandatory. Suppose if all the cases are actually explicitly given in your program, then the case default is not actually mandatory in your program. But if it is not present, in some situations you have to use the default. So in the case default will give you the answer that the value is negative or 0. Suppose if you are giving the n value as 0 or negative values, then the value will not be fit in all the other 3 cases. So it automatically come to the default case, and it prints the value is negative or 0. The message will be printed in your output is. Then you can similarly you can close the every case with the end select with the name. The name is not again optional. Option is now it's optional one. So if I enter the value 39, I already told you that whatever the number which is greater than 11, so this case will be executed. So the value is too high. So you have to enter the value between 1 to 10. Suppose if you are entering the value as 3, then the first case will be executed because 3 is here. Similarly, if you are entered the number 6, then the 6 is actually come under the case of case 2. Then it will print the value. The entered number is even valued. So whatever number we are giving, the user is giving, depending upon the value of the value of the variable, you can take a different decision. So this is one of the another control construct. Okay, so that's all. So we have seen the different control constructs from block if, logical if then else, and the nested if statements and the case statements. So these are all some of the branches which we have used in the FORTRAN programming. So apart from this, we have also have some other control constructs which is called the do loops, which we have seen in the next class or next video. I hope you understood the concepts of the branches. Suppose if you have any doubt, then we can again as usual discuss in the class. Thank you.